The year was 1896, and deep within the mountains of Ethiopia, one of the most dramatic battles in African history was about to begin. After weeks of exhausting marches through the harsh Ethiopian highlands, the invading army finally approached the mountains near Adwa. It was the early morning of March 1st, 1896. Cold wind moved across the rocky hills as thousands of soldiers advanced deeper into unfamiliar territory. Their rifles, artillery, and military training had already helped European armies conquer many lands before, and their commanders believed this campaign would end the same way. To them, victory seemed only hours away, but the mountains around them were hiding something far more dangerous than they expected. Beyond the ridges and valleys, thousands of Ethiopian fighters were already waiting silently in the shadows of the highlands, watching every movement, preparing for the moment the battle would begin. Hidden within the rugged terrain, Ethiopian fighters were already moving through the hills and narrow mountain paths. They knew every route, every ridge, and every hidden passage. Unlike the invading army, they were not fighting for expansion. They were fighting for survival, freedom, and the future of their country. As the Italian forces advanced deeper into the highlands, the terrain itself began turning against them. The steep mountains slowed movement. Dust rose beneath marching boots. Communication between divisions became harder with every passing hour. Units began drifting apart in the darkness and confusion of the landscape, and beyond the mountains, an entire force was preparing to strike. The invading army believed they faced scattered resistance. Instead, they were walking into a massive coordinated force gathering across the mountains. At dawn, the silence broke. War cries echoed across the hills as Ethiopian forces descended from multiple directions. Fighters armed with rifles, shields, and traditional weapons surged across the terrain with speed the invaders did not expect. Gunfire erupted through the valleys. Smoke filled the mountain air. The Italian divisions, already separated by the difficult terrain, struggled to regroup. Some units found themselves isolated with little support. Orders became confused. Communication lines weakened. What had seemed like a controlled military advance was rapidly turning into chaos. But Ethiopian forces understood exactly how to use the battlefield. Using their knowledge of the mountains, they surrounded vulnerable positions and attacked from unexpected angles. Fighters moved quickly across ridges and narrow paths invisible to the invading army. The terrain, that once appeared quiet and empty, had become a deadly advantage. The battle intensified hour after hour. Italian artillery fired across the hills, but the pressure continued building from every direction. Ethiopian forces pushed forward relentlessly, overwhelming isolated enemy positions and forcing the invading army deeper into confusion. And then reality became impossible to ignore. The army that arrived expecting victory was now fighting desperately to survive. By the end of the battle, the invading force had suffered a devastating defeat. One of Europe's colonial armies had been overwhelmed in the mountains of Ethiopia by a determined force defending its homeland. The victor shocked the world. At a time when much of Africa was falling under colonial rule, Ethiopia had achieved something many thought impossible. It had defeated a European invasion army and protected its independence. And, from that moment forward, the battle would become more than just a military victory. It became a symbol of resistance, remembered across Africa and far beyond its borders for generations to come.